Two outsiders, Ruyan and I, had a happy family and a lovely daughter. Even I thought we would stay this happy for the rest of our lives. But 7 years after our wedding, my wife grew more and more resistant to my touch. She even messaged her close friend, Youchu, asking, "What do you do when physical disgust clashes with financially motivated liking?" Until her childhood sweetheart, her first love, Makoto, the one she felt visceral attraction for, came back to the country. 1 month. It only took 1 month for me to become a complete joke. Makoto returned to the country. Ruyan went to pick him up. That night, she partied with him all night at a hotel. She did not tell me. On the phone, she only said the hospital had an emergency surgery. She would not be home tonight. I said okay. Told her to take care of herself, not to wear herself out. Then I hung up. I finished telling Sweetie her bedtime story, and she fell asleep quickly, hugging her teddy bear. But, in the middle of the night, Sweetie's faint crying woke me. I reached out and touched her forehead. It was burning hot. The red line in the thermometer had settled at 39.2 degrees. My chest clenched hard. I immediately called Ruyan. The first time, after a long string of busy tones, no one answered. The second time, it rang only twice, before she cut the call off without hesitation. I did not dare waste another second. I wrapped the feverish, dazed Sweetie tightly in a blanket, grabbed my car keys and rushed to City First Hospital where she worked. The emergency room lobby at midnight was thick with the smell of disinfectant and anxiety. So heavy it was hard to breathe. Holding the sleeping Sweetie in my arms, I queued, registered, paid the fee, and ran up and down the cold corridors. Sweetie whined miserably in my arms. Her little face flushed bright red. She kept mumbling "Mom" in her sleep. Every word felt like a red-hot needle stabbing into my heart. At the corner of the hallway on the way to the lab, I ran into Dr. Zhang from Ruyan's department. He had just come out of an operation and looked exhausted. He froze for a moment when he saw me and said, "Jibota, so late. Bringing Sweetie in for treatment?" I said, "The child has a high fever." I shifted aside so he could see Sweetie bundled in my arms. "Oh no. Why didn't you call Ruyan?" Dr. Zhang asked, looking puzzled. "She's on a compensatory day off today. She should be home taking care of the child." My feet froze in place. The noise around me seemed to vanish in an instant, and all I could hear was the roar of my own blood rushing to my head. "She is off today." My own voice sounded frighteningly dry. Dr. Zhang nodded. "Yeah. She asked the department head for several days off. Said she had something important to handle." "You did not know." After Dr. Zhang said that, his phone rang. He hurriedly answered it and left. I held Sweetie in my arms, standing there alone. The window at the end of the corridor was open, and the bitter winter wind blew straight into my collar. The chill seeped through my skin and into my bones. I looked down at my daughter in my arms, her little face burning red from the fever, and all I felt was how absurd and ridiculous it was. Her mom had taken several days off to keep a very important friend company, while her daughter had a 100-degree fever. The call her husband made, she hung up without hesitation. At 3 in the morning, I carried Sweetie home after her drip was finished, and the empty house was dead silent. My daughter was asleep, but I could not sleep. I picked up my phone and scrolled through short videos for a while. Maybe the welcome back party was too eye-catching, and someone had posted a video to show off her best friend, Makoto's friend, even some random stranger. And that was how I, on a short video app, ended up seeing more than a dozen live streams from different angles. Big data really knew what it was doing. It knew my wife was welcoming her first love back, and pushed it straight to me. The first video was posted by Ruyan's best friend. The caption said, "May my girl always be happy." In the video, Ruyan was wearing a champagne-colored gown I had never seen before, smiling brightly and beautifully. She was lovingly putting food on Makoto's plate. That dress was expensive and very revealing. The back dipped all the way to her waist. She had never worn it in front of me. I swiped it away with a blank expression. Before long, I came across a second one. This time it was filmed by Makoto's friend. The camera was blatantly pointed at the two of them. The background song was "Today You Will Marry Me." Ruyan was holding up a wine glass, her cheeks flushed red, looking up at Makoto, focused and utterly enthralled. It was another expression I had never seen on her. By daybreak, I changed Sweetie's cold towel, having stayed up all night. The sound of a key turning in the lock, in that dead silence, was especially harsh. The door opened. Ruyan walked in, Or rather, the woman in the champagne-colored gown walked in. That dress, so bright and stunning in the video, was now wrinkled and clinging to her body. There were still stains of some unknown wine on the hem. A strong smell of alcohol mixed with unfamiliar cologne from the man she'd been sleeping with had invaded the territory I had guarded all night. It was not my scent, and it was not the scent of this home. At last, she saw me sitting in the shadow of the sofa. She stopped short. Her eyes instinctively darted away, drifting toward the pothose in the corner she had almost killed. She casually tossed the designer bag in her hand onto the cabinet, and it made a loud thump. She said, "I was going to tell you last night." Her voice was very soft, raspy from a hangover, with a faint trace of guilt that was easy to miss. I said nothing. I just looked at her in silence. The longer I stared, the more uneasy she became. She reached up and smoothed her hair, then spoke again. The department had an impromptu dinner, and the department head was there too. It was hard to turn down. My phone just happened to die. She started fabricating lies with practiced ease, a lie that sounded pretty reasonable. If this had been before, I might have believed her. Too bad. Last night, big data taught me a very vivid lesson. I picked up the children's fever medicine from the coffee table and shook it. The liquid inside made a clear sloshing sound. Sweetie had spiked to 39.2 degrees last night. My voice was soft too, but it was like a stone thrown into still water. Ryan's face changed instantly. She hurried over, her tone anxious as she asked, "And now, has the fever gone down? Why didn't you call me?" That question is easily the joke of the year. I laughed. I really did think it was funny. My chest shook with it. I did call. I picked up my phone and opened the call log. I turned the screen toward her and said, "First call, you didn't answer. Second call, you hung up." The cold light from the screen fell on her face. That maternal worry froze in place. She opened her mouth, as if she wanted to explain something, but no words came out. I said, "Right. After all, your best friend was supposed to be happy forever." I slowly took my phone back, and copying the caption from her best friend's video, read it out word for word. Ryan's pupils shrank. I did not give her time to react. I went on. "Dr. Liu, that dress looks great on you. Ito Makoto's friend has pretty good taste too. The song they picked for you too, 'Today You Will Marry Me,' was pretty fitting." My tone was flat, as if I were talking about the weather. But every word drained another shade of color from her face. "And another thing, you clearly took several days off, but you told me you were working overtime at the hospital. Who are you trying to fool?" She looked at me, her lips trembling. In those eyes I had once been hopelessly obsessed with, panic finally appeared. "How did you know?" I stood up and walked over to her. I was a head taller than her, and my shadow swallowed her whole. I lowered my head, leaned close to her ear, and asked in a voice only the two of us could hear. I said, "I just wanted to ask, when I called you the second time, and you hung up without hesitation, was Ito Makoto's hand on your waist, or on your shoulder? What nonsense are you spouting? Ito Makoto, and I have done nothing. That call, I just didn't hear it." I laughed. I said, "Innocent. Didn't hear it." I let out a soft laugh and slid my phone onto the coffee table in front of her. A high-definition video was looping on the screen. In the video, she was smiling sweetly as she handed Ito Makoto a glass of wine. When she leaned down slightly, her neckline gave everything away. Ito Makoto's eyes happened to settle right there. I said, "Do you think this is dirty too? So, you need so many excuses to wipe it clean." I slowly stood up and looked down at her as I continued. "Ryan, let me remind you, we are married. I am your husband. Keeping a safe distance from your first love is the most basic respect this marriage deserves." Ryan said unhappily, "Look, there you go again. I was right not to tell you. There is nothing between me and Ito Makoto at all." I said, "Nothing." I felt like I had just heard the joke of the century. I asked, "When did City First Hospital start offering new services? Were overtime shifts now being used to throw welcome-back parties? Did the lead surgeon have to personally drink with them and stay at a hotel overnight? Should we just take the patient straight to AKTV for a consultation next time?" "Jiboda, how dare you insult me like this?" Ryan blew up instantly. Fire burned in her eyes, fury and humiliation. I said, "I am only stating the facts." I picked up my own phone, unlocked it in front of her, and slowly opened my contacts. I said, "All right, let's be fair. Tonight I'll ask my college junior to have a drink with me. and talk about life and dreams. She got divorced recently, and she's in a bad mood. I should keep her company. If I get drunk too, I'll go to a hotel and get a room for the night. I paused and looked up at her, with no warmth at all on my face. I said, "Don't worry, I'll remember to remind you to. So, you do not overthink it. We are innocent." Jiboda, you dare. I laughed out loud and tapped lightly on the junior's name. I stopped. I said, "See whether I dare or not." After that fight, which was almost laughable, Ruyan really did behave for 2 days. She started coming home on time. She would take the initiative to bathe Sweetie and tell her stories. She even washed the dishes once, which was rare. Watching her clumsy back in the kitchen, I almost thought my hard line had worked, that this family still had a chance. But the good times did not last. On the 3rd day, she started coming home late again. By the 5th day, she was staying out all night again. Her excuse was still the same tired old line. The hospital was busy. There was surgery, or the department had a dinner. I did not argue with her anymore, and I did not question her anymore. Like an experienced old farmer, watching weeds keep sprouting up in the field, I was too lazy to pull them out one by one anymore. I had already started thinking about whether I should just change fields. That day, after I finished telling Sweetie her bedtime story, the little girl wrapped her arms around my neck and asked in a soft, babyish voice, "Dad, why has Mom still not come back?" She said she would go to the sports day with Sweetie. Something clenched in my chest. The kindergarten parent-child sports day was the day after tomorrow. The teacher had specifically said both parents needed to participate. I patted Sweetie's head, picked up my phone, found Ruyan on WeChat, and sent her a message. "The day after tomorrow is Sweetie's sports day. You said you would go. Remember to come back early." A long time passed. She replied with one word, "Okay." I stared at that lonely little okay, feeling no ripple in my heart. By the night before the sports day, the entryway was still empty. Sweetie kept running out of her room again and again, standing on tiptoe to look toward the door, only to be disappointed again and again. "Dad, did Mom get lost? Is Mom saving some very important patient? Does Mom not want Sweetie anymore?" A child's innocent words, but every word stabbed straight through my heart. At 10 that night, Sweetie finally cried herself out, sobbing herself to sleep in my arms. I carried her back to her room and tucked her in. My phone screen lit up. It was Ruyan calling. I went out to the balcony, closed the door, and answered. She said, I can't come back tonight." Her voice was very soft, with faint music and noisy chatter in the background. I said nothing, waiting for her to continue. She said, "The hospital suddenly had an emergency surgery, and I was the lead surgeon. I can't get away. I'll probably be up all night. Tomorrow morning I'll go straight to the kindergarten to meet you." Another surgery. City First Hospital really has a lot of patients. So many that their attending physician has to live at the hospital every day. "Got it," I said flatly. "What kind of surgery?" There was a clear pause on her end, as if she had not expected me to ask for details. She said, "A case of perforated appendicitis, and the case is pretty complicated." "Oh," I answered and went on. "All right, you get back to work first. Be careful." Then I hung up. I opened Moments and scrolled down out of habit. Then, my fingers stopped. One of Ito Makoto's friends, someone I had never added, but could still see through mutual friends, had posted a video at 9:30. Inside a birthday private room, the lights were dazzling. A group of people was gathered around a giant cake. Ito Makoto sat in the center, surrounded like the star of the show, smiling broadly as he made a wish. And my wife, that Dr. Liu who should have been saving a patient with perforated appendicitis at the operating table, was standing right beside Ito Makoto, singing the birthday song with an admiring look on her face, clapping harder than anyone else. Today she wore a white knit sweater, which made her look especially gentle. That focused look, that bright smile, were nothing like the wife I remembered in her white coat, healing the sick and saving lives. It was like she was a completely different person. I took a screenshot without changing my expression. Less than 2 minutes later, I refreshed again, and the post was already gone. Deleted fast. Too bad. Too late. I looked at the screenshot on my phone. In the photo, Ruyan's head leaned slightly toward Ito Makoto's shoulder, her face glowing with happiness. Suddenly, I felt like I was being treated like a fool. She was not in surgery. She was celebrating her God's birthday. I took a deep breath. The cold air filled my lungs, but it could not smother the fire raging in my chest. I opened my phone gallery and put this freshly made screenshot and the earlier video screenshots into a new folder. The folder name was simple. I called it Evidence. At the check-in area for the sports day, the other kids were all clinging to their parents. Only Sweetie was wearing a miserable little face as she clutched the corner of my shirt. From the kindergarten loudspeakers, the cheerful march of athletes played again and again. I crouched down. I straightened the little number tag on her chest. Sweetie, are you ready? Dad's going to help you win first place today. Sweetie nodded hard, but the disappointment in her big eyes was impossible to hide as she asked, Will Mom come? I was silent for a moment. I patted her head and said, Mom is fighting monsters. Let's compete first. If you win a gold medal, she'll come. Sweetie and I came in first in the three-legged race. The little girl had a shiny gold plastic medal hanging around her neck. The teacher invited her up to speak. She held the microphone. Her little face flushed bright red, but her voice was loud and clear. She said, I'm so happy today. What I most want to say to Mom is, next time you have to come and be with me. I miss you so much. A wave of kind applause broke out below the stage. I stood in the crowd, looking at my daughter on stage, and it felt like something had clogged my heart. A complete family means a lot to a child, important enough that I had to endure all of this. Just then, a familiar figure appeared at the entrance to the venue. Ruyan arrived late. She only caught sight of Sweetie's back as she came down from the stage. She was dressed very casually today, and there was no sign of the exhaustion from an all-night surgery. Her makeup, though, was exquisite. Mom. The moment Sweetie saw her, the tears came pouring down. She ran over on her short little legs, wrapped her arms around her leg, and cried so hard she could barely breathe. Ruyan looked a little at a loss. She crouched down and held Sweetie, comforting her awkwardly. I walked over and said calmly, Let's find somewhere to eat first. Buy Sweetie a gift and cheer her up. Ruyan nodded in agreement. In the restaurant, Sweetie had just calmed down. When Ruyan's phone rang, she glanced at the caller ID, and her expression immediately turned awkward. She took the phone and stepped aside. When she came back, she was wearing an apologetic look. Jibota, I'm sorry. The hospital just received a car accident victim with massive bleeding. They need surgery right away. I have to go back. Another surgery. Her surgeries were more punctual than food deliveries. I nodded. I didn't look at her. I said, Got it. Then hurry and go. The patient comes first. She seemed not to have expected me to be so easygoing. She froze for a moment, then hurriedly grabbed her bag. She kissed Sweetie on the cheek again, then turned and left. Watching her disappearing back, I took out my phone and made a call. I said, Hello, Chen Zi. Are you busy? Chen Zi was my college classmate. He worked in the general surgery department at City First Hospital, right next to Ruyan's department. He replied, Not busy. I just got out of surgery. What's up? Nothing. Just asking. Did your hospital just admit a car accident victim with massive bleeding? My wife said it was pretty serious. There was a 2-second silence on the other end of the line. Chen Zi's voice turned a little strange. He said, No. Besides, didn't Ruyan take leave today? I even saw her leave slip this morning. I see, I said with a small smile. Then, maybe I heard wrong. Jibota, something's off with you. Chen Zi's gossip instincts flared to life. He said, Are you and Ruyan having problems? I heard people in the department say. She's been really close lately with that new returnee from overseas, Makoto. They eat lunch together every day. You should keep an eye on it. The more he said, the angrier he got. He cursed. Damn it. What the hell is this? Just wait. I'll keep watch for you. If I see those two all over each other again, I'll take a picture and send it to you. I hung up. I lowered my head and stared at the plate in front of me, and suddenly lost my appetite. Not long after I finished eating with Sweetie, my phone dinged. It was a photo Chen Zi had sent me. The background was an upscale Western restaurant. Ruyan and Makoto were leaning head to head, peering together at something on a phone. Both were smiling brightly. On Ruyan, she was still wearing the same home clothes from this morning, so her operating room wasn't a place like this. Sweetie in my arms suddenly started crying again. Her little hands clutched at my shirt, and she cried in broken sobs. By accident, she saw it. She choked out, Dad and Mom are bad people. Sweetie doesn't like Mom anymore. I don't want her anymore. I held my daughter, gently patting her back. but I couldn't say a word. On the phone screen, that glaring photo was still lit up. I saved it with a tap and put it into the folder named Evidence. Just after I got Sweetie to sleep, my phone suddenly started vibrating on the nightstand. The caller ID was an unfamiliar number. My chest tightened for no reason. My first reaction was that something had happened to Ruyan. What was ridiculous was, the moment that thought flashed through my mind, all I felt was shock, and not a trace of panic. The call connected. It was my mother-in-law's voice, anxious and on the verge of tears. Jiboda, Liu Qiang, he suddenly fainted. He's at City First Hospital now. Please come over right away. Liu Ryan's phone still wouldn't connect. My mind went blank with a loud buzz. I got out of bed at once, and while getting dressed, I comforted her. Don't panic. Which department? I'll be there right away. When I rushed to the hospital, handled the admission, ran up and down paying the fees and collecting medicine, and contacted the doctor. It was already deep into the night by the time my father-in-law finally settled down safely. In the hospital bed, it was already midnight. My mother-in-law was sitting by the bed, her eyes red, holding my hand, her face full of exhaustion and guilt. Jiboda, you worked hard again. I know things have been off between you two lately. Please be more patient with her. If husband and wife have something to say, they should say it face to face. Don't bottle it up inside. I nodded. I said nothing. Say it face to face. Say what? Ask her what brand of cigarettes Ito Makoto smokes. Or ask her whose bed she's in. My father-in-law woke up in the hospital bed. He slowly opened his eyes. His cloudy gaze fell on me. He beckoned to me, signaling me to come over. Jiboda, come here. His voice was weak, but his eyes were unusually clear. I bent down. He said, don't listen to her mother butting him blindly. My father-in-law caught his breath, then went on. That girl Liu Ryan is my own daughter. If she so much as shifts her ass, I know exactly what shit she's about to pull. Her heart's wandering now. I know it. He paused, and a hint of guilt and resolve showed in his eyes. Back then at the intersection, if you hadn't shoved my old woman out of the way, the grass on her grave would be as tall as a man by now. Our old Liu family owes you one. If Liu Ryan really did something to wrong you, you don't need to worry about us. Do whatever needs to be done. In this family, I've got your back, and you must take good care of Sweetie. My nose stung. My eyes burned. I nodded hard and said, Dad, don't worry. After I left the hospital, the cold wind blew on me, and I felt a lot more clear-headed. I drove to my mom's place to pick up Sweetie. On the way, Liu Ryan's call finally came through. The moment I answered, she hit me with a barrage of accusations. Jiboda, you're really something. You went behind my back and complained to my parents. I knew there was no way you were that easy to deal with. So this is what you were waiting for. How petty can you be? Your heart is black. So now everything looks dirty to you, huh? She must have just arrived at the hospital. In the background, I could still hear my mother-in-law trying to calm her down. As I listened to her furious shouting, I suddenly felt it was pointless. I didn't even have the energy to argue with her. So in her heart, staying out all night and lying through her teeth were not mistakes. What was truly unforgivable was me making her lose face in front of her parents. That, to her, was the real crime. I don't have time for this, I replied flatly, and hung up. With someone living in their own world, there's nothing to talk about. In the hospital, Liu Ryan held up her phone after the call was cut off and froze completely. My mother-in-law, standing beside her, was so angry she kept crying. She scolded, Look at yourself, and you still think you're in the right. A married woman, going out every night and parading yourself around. Who do you think you're fooling? On the bed, Mr. Liu was even angrier, his chest heaving violently. He pointed at Liu Ryan, his hands shaking. He shouted, Didn't you say you were working overtime? Which department were you working overtime in? Was hanging out with Ito Makoto also overtime? Liu Ryan's face went deathly pale. Her lips trembled as she said, Dad, what? What nonsense are you talking about? I'm making things up. Mr. Liu gave a cold laugh. He reached straight for the phone on the bedside table. Then, right in front of her, he dialed the number and said, Hello, Director Liu? I'm Liu Ryan's father. Sorry to trouble you with something. Please send me Liu Ryan's attendance record for this month. Yes, I want it right now. Let me see. Exactly how many overtime shifts our Dr. Liu has really worked. The color drained from Liu Ryan's face in an instant. She lunged for the phone. Her voice changed pitch. She said, "Dad, don't call. What are you doing?" But the more she tried to stop him, the more Father Liu and Mother Liu's heart sank. That outstretched hand was like a loud slap in the face, shattering every one of her shaky lies. After that day, Liu Ruyan came home once. She didn't mention that my father-in-law was in the hospital, and she didn't ask about Sweetie. She just threw her bag onto the entryway cabinet. Then she looked at me coldly and said, "You tattled to my parents. Happy now?" I was sitting on the sofa, peeling an apple for Sweetie. Without even lifting my eyes, I said, "Your dad isn't in good shape. Don't upset him. If something happens to him again, I won't be able to help you." She probably thought I was using her father to pressure her. Her expression darkened even more. But in the end, she said nothing else. She turned and went into the bedroom and slammed the door hard. Over the next month and more, Liu Ruyan came home only a handful of times. Every time, she was like a tenant just staying over. She either said she was tired or said she was sleepy. Whenever I said I wanted to talk to her properly, she'd pick up her phone or hide in the room and cut me off before I could finish. Her excuse for going out was always overtime at the hospital. And on my phone, I kept receiving dozens of ironclad pieces of proof from Shen. Sometimes it was a high-end Western restaurant, with Liu Ruyan resting her chin in her hand, smiling sweetly at Ito Makoto across from her. Shen would add a caption, "Bro, tonight it's tomahawk steak. Your wife has a pretty good appetite." Sometimes it was at a concert. The two of them had their heads together, as if they were sharing the same pair of headphones. Shen's comment was brief and pointed. "To refine for the masses. Sophisticated taste." I saved every single one. The folder called evidence kept getting fuller. That night, Sweetie suddenly cried and fussed nonstop. She didn't eat a single bite of dinner. She wrapped her arms around my neck and kept calling for Mom. She cried until her little face turned purple, almost convulsing. I coaxed her for a long time, trying everything I could, but she was still crying so hard she could barely catch her breath. I really was out of options, watching my daughter in my arms, crying until she had no strength left. The last string in my heart finally snapped. I grabbed the car keys, wrapped Sweetie in a thick coat, and headed straight for City First Hospital. When I got to her department, the office door was left slightly ajar. Warm light spilled out from inside. Holding Sweetie, I raised my hand to knock, but then I heard Ito Makoto's voice from inside. It carried a touch of affectionate teasing. "You are just as stubborn? Why didn't you tell me if something was wrong?" Then came Liu Ruyan's voice, very soft, with a trace of barely hidden grievance. "What would be the point of telling you?" My chest tightened, as if possessed. I gently pushed the door open. Inside the office, Liu Ruyan had her back to the door, and she was hugging Ito Makoto. Ito Makoto's hand was on her back, patting her gently, as if soothing a child who had been wronged. That scene was warm and harmonious. When they heard the door open, they both spun around. When Liu Ruyan saw me and Sweetie in my arms, her body stiffened. She reflexively pushed Ito Makoto away. I said nothing. I just looked at them in silence. Then I quietly pulled the door shut. Sorry to interrupt. The door closed behind me, cutting off everything inside. I lowered my head and looked at my daughter in my arms. She was looking back at me with her red-rimmed eyes. Her little hands were clutching my clothes tightly. "Sweetie," I heard my own voice, calm in a way that felt strangely unfamiliar. I said, "You may soon no longer have a mom." Sweetie looked only half understanding. She asked softly, "Daddy, why is Mommy hugging that uncle? Does she not like Sweetie anymore? Does she not love Daddy anymore either?" A little over a minute later, the office door opened. Liu Ruyan hurried out. Her face still held the fluster of being caught, but when she spoke, it was in a scolding tone. "Jibota, why didn't you knock before coming in?" I ignored her question and just looked at her coldly. My stare made her skin crawl a little. Her eyes darted away. She forced an awkward smile and began to explain. "Don't misunderstand. There's nothing between me and Ito Makoto. Just now, there was something on the back of his collar. I was only helping him get it off." That excuse was laughably clumsy. I gave a light laugh. Right in front of her, I slowly took out my phone, opened the album named Evidence, and scrolled to the photo Shen had sent me that afternoon. In the photo, Liu Ruyan and Ito Makoto were sitting by the window of a coffee shop, with afternoon sunlight spilling over them. Liu Ruyan was using a spoon to take a bite from the cake in front of her and feeding it to Ito Makoto. I turned the phone screen toward her. My voice was not loud, but it was perfectly clear. I said, "Is that so? What about this one? There's something on the corner of his mouth too. In the phone's cold glow, Ryan's face went from red to white, then from white to a sickly green. It was quite a look. Before I could say anything, Ito Makoto had already stepped out of the office. He moved to Ryan's side, naturally placing a hand on her shoulder, as if he owned the place. He looked at me, his brow faintly furrowed. Sir, before entering someone else's office, shouldn't you knock first? That's basic courtesy. He spoke hurriedly, with a condescending air of scrutiny. Also, Ryan and I are just co-workers. There's nothing improper between us. As her husband, it's one thing if you don't care about her, but coming to the hospital to make trouble, that probably isn't very appropriate. His argument was airtight. He had the moral high ground, and washed his own hands of it completely. Sweetie suddenly started struggling in my arms. Her little finger pointed at Ito Makoto, and she shouted hoarsely through her tears, "You're a bad uncle. Give my mommy back to me." The child's voice was shrill, loud and clear in the silent hallway. Sweetie had seen the photos on my phone more than once. She knew that this was the man who had kept mommy from coming home for days, who never told her stories. Ito Makoto's composure cracked. Ryan's expression darkened completely. She violently shook off Ito Makoto's hand, then strode up to me. Fire burned in her eyes, but it was not directed at me. It was aimed at my daughter in my arms. Ji Tianxian, who taught you to talk like that? What nonsense are you spouting? She lowered her voice, but every word was still reprimanding. Then, she lifted her head and fixed me with a scorching stare as she said, "Jibota, is this how you teach your daughter? To stir up trouble? To invent lies out of thin air? She's so young, and she's already learned to smear her elders. You really have no shame." I looked at her shameless attempt to twist the blame around, and laughed from pure anger. I said, "I taught her." Ryan, has alcohol rotted your brain? What she saw is what she said. What did you do that made her see it? And you're still denying it. Ryan's voice suddenly rose sharply. My calmness seemed to provoke her. She said, "You'd better immediately take Sweetie and apologize to Ito Makoto." Apologize? I felt like I'd just heard the joke of the century. I said, "Dr. Liu, are you sure you don't have a fever and are just talking nonsense? What would she be apologizing for? For your mother shamelessly feeding another man cake?" Ryan was left speechless by me. Her face turned the color of liver. She looked at Sweetie trembling in my arms from fear, and the humiliation of having her lie exposed. Finally found an outlet. She suddenly reached out to slap Sweetie's little face. She shrieked, "I'll teach you to talk nonsense. I'll discipline you today whether you like it or not." I was already on guard. I twisted aside and shielded Sweetie at my side. At the same time, I grabbed her wrist. Her wrist was pinned in my grip, unable to move. Ryan, have you lost your mind? My voice went cold. I said, "You made a mistake yourself, and now you're taking it out on a child." She bit her lip and said, "I'm disciplining my daughter. That's only natural." Ryan's chest rose and fell violently. Being embarrassed in front of Ito Makoto made her furious with shame. In a fit of reckless anger, she said, "Jibota, don't think I don't know what you're thinking. You just think I embarrassed you, don't you? So you went and coached the child to smear me, to come cause trouble at my workplace. You just want to ruin my reputation." The more she talked, the more justified she felt, and her voice only grew sharper. In Ryan's beautiful eyes, there was only twisted anger now. Her raised hand swept toward Sweetie's face again without hesitation. The thread of restraint in me snapped with a twang. Just before her palm came down, I suddenly lifted my hand and blocked it. Ryan lost her balance and stumbled from the force. Sweetie was so frightened she was shaking all over, and even her crying turned ragged. From this moment on, I knew exactly what I had to do. What I had in my hands might not prove they had slept together, but a divorce and full custody of my daughter would be enough. The next second, smack, a sharp crack exploded through the silent hallway. Time seemed to stop. Ryan covered her face, completely stunned. Her eyes were full of disbelief. Everything around us fell silent. The passing nurse, the doctor who had poked his head out from the next apartment. All eyes turned toward us. They washed over the three of us like searchlights. Some of the people who knew Ryan looked at her with complicated expressions. Whispers rippled through the hall. Someone said, "Isn't that Dr. Liu's husband, Jibota? He looks so refined. Why did he hit someone? Didn't you see? Dr. Liu was about to hit the child. He was protecting her. Besides, that slap just now. TSK. That sure was loud. I knew something was off between those two. They ate lunch together every day. 2 days ago, I even saw Dr. Ito bring flowers to Dr. Liu. Keep your voice down. This is getting big. The department head is probably going to hear about it. Those voices. Every word was like a red-hot needle, stabbing hard into Liu Ryan's face. Her proud professional image, in the place she knew best, was being torn to pieces. I flexed my hand, which had gone a little numb, and stared at her. Then I said, word by word, Liu Ryan, ever since Ito Makoto came back to China, what exactly have you been doing? Don't tell me you don't know that yourself. A married woman, staying out all night every day, all over another man in public. Your daughter runs a 102-degree fever, and you don't answer the phone. Your own father is in the hospital, and you say it's my fault. Now, you even want to lay hands on my daughter. I took a step forward. Did you think I had no temper left? Covering her face, she said, her voice shaking with rage. Why you hit me? Ito Makoto, who had been standing nearby, finally reacted. He roared and reached for my collar, shouting, what kind of man are you? You actually hit a woman? I didn't dodge. The instant his hand touched my collar, I kicked out, right in the stomach. Ito Makoto's refined, bookish body went flying backward like a sack of rags. He crashed into the wall 2 meters away, slid down to the floor, and couldn't get up for a long time. A wave of sharp intakes of breath ran through the hallway. Jibota, you've lost your mind. Screaming, Liu Ryan ran toward Ito Makoto, trying to help him up. The way she looked back at me was full of hatred, but even then, she was still making excuses. She said, Ito Makoto and I are innocent. We didn't do anything. Don't slander me with filthy lies. Innocent. Her utter refusal to admit anything made me laugh in anger. I said, if you've done nothing wrong, fine, then tell me. At Ito Makoto's birthday party last night, what wish did you make? When you sang him the birthday song, you stood closer to him than even his own mother did, and that was innocent too. If you were mourning Ito Makoto's father, would you also have to go cry at the grave for show, just to prove you're innocent? My words were crude and ugly, and Liu Ryan's face went red, then white. The murmuring around us only grew louder. Someone said, I knew there was something off about her, and that Dr. Ito wasn't her husband some rich heir. She used to brag about it all the time in the department. TSK. She married such a good husband, and still wasn't satisfied. Look how scared the child is. She instinctively looked at Ito Makoto on the floor, hoping he'd stand up for her. But Ito Makoto only curled up in the corner, one hand clamped over his stomach, one hand braced on the floor, his face turning a deep purple from the strain, panting hard. He could not even finish a full sentence. That pathetic, disheveled look of his had none of that overseas elite polish left. Liu Ryan's last line of defense completely collapsed. She pointed at me, screeching, Jibota, Ito Makoto and I are just ordinary co-workers. Nothing improper at all. And you dare smear me? I want a divorce. I cannot live like this for another day. Fine. I looked at her calmly and said 2 words. I said, if you want a divorce, then let's make everything clear. Let your co-workers judge for themselves. Let's see just how innocent you, Dr. Liu, really are. The moment I finished speaking, the hallway exploded into chaos. The doctors and nurses peeking out. The patient's family members there for the spectacle. Their chatter buzzed like flies. Dozens of eyes landed on Liu Ryan's ghost-white face. Some were curious, some contemptuous, and some were plainly enjoying her misery. An older head nurse could not stand by and watch any longer. She walked over and tried to persuade me. Jibota, this is a hospital. Talk it out properly. Don't make a scene here. You're disturbing the patient's rest. Right after that, 2 security guards came rushing over as well. They were carrying rubber batons. One of them, someone I knew, shouted at me, Jibota, what do you think you're doing? Leave immediately. Otherwise we'll call the police. I ignored them. My eyes stayed fixed on Liu Ryan. From the backpack I carried with me, the backpack holding Sweetie's water bottle and snacks, I pulled out a thick craft paper envelope. I gave it a sharp toss. Dozens of printed photos fell like snowflakes, drifting down in a scatter. They covered Liu Ryan's hair and face, then landed at her feet. I had not wanted to make this known to everyone before. But since she refused to repent, I had no reason to spare her any dignity. These were all things I intended to use as evidence. I bent down and picked one up. I held it up in front of her and said, "On June 3rd, Ito Makoto returned to the country. You lied and said it was a department dinner. This one shows you eating with him. You were smiling so happily." I let go. The photo fluttered to the floor. I picked up another one. I said, "July 5th, Sweetie's kindergarten parent-child sports day. You said the hospital had an emergency surgery. This one is you sitting with him at a Western restaurant for a candlelight dinner." The photo fell again. I said, "July 20th, Ito Makoto's birthday. You said you had surgery again. This one was taken in a lavish private room. You led the others in singing him happy birthday." I kept picking them up one after another. I said, "On our wedding anniversary, you said you were on duty. On weekends, you said you were at an academic conference. Ruyan, do you still remember all the lies you told? Can you even keep them straight yourself?" Finally, I pulled the last sheet from the paper bag. It was a copy Chen Z had someone get from me. It was a photocopy of Liu Ryan's attendance record for this month. I slapped it down on top of the pile of photos. I said, "Open your eyes and look carefully. Those are all your leave records. Tell me, which operating room were you working overtime in? Was the lead surgeon Ito Makoto?" Ito Makoto's refined face had already turned a dark purple. He probably felt his pride had fallen to the floor with those photos. He let out a furious shout. Like a man gone mad, he lunged at the pile on the floor. Ito Makoto shouted in fury, "You filthy liar." I was already prepared. I sidestepped him, then drove my right foot straight into the back of his knee. He let out a miserable howl. He went down on one knee. Before he could react, I snapped out a clean, sharp whip kick. It landed solidly on his ribs. Ito Makoto folded like a shrimp kicked into the air, his body arcing sideways as he flew to meters back. He slammed into the wall, groaning and unable to get back up. I shook out my leg, looked at the stunned security guards, and smiled. Then I explained calmly. I was on the school track team in high school. I trained in Sanda for a few days. Dealing with someone this weak and useless was more than enough. The two security guards exchanged a look, and there was a little more sympathy in their eyes when they looked at me. They came up, one on each side, and held my arms. But they did not use much force. It was more like they were protecting me. A few hospital leaders also rushed over after hearing the news. They immediately launched into a scolding about not making the matter worse, telling me not to make the matter worse. I could not be bothered to argue with them. I took out my phone, and in front of everyone, dialed 110. Police station. I want to report a crime. City First Hospital. 3rd floor of the outpatient building. Someone's having an affair. He also tried to hit a child. I've already hit him. Come over and deal with this. Under everyone's stunned gaze, I took the last document from the deepest layer of my backpack. I tossed it onto the dazed and distraught Ruyan. I said, "Divorce agreement. I already signed it." I looked at her. My voice was not loud, but it was loud enough for everyone around us to hear. "Sweetie stays with me. You are not fit to be her mother." I spent 24 hours at the police station. Ito Makoto's injury was classified as a minor injury. It did not amount to criminal liability. I paid 10,000 yuan. I signed the settlement agreement. That was the end of it. My dad's car was parked across the street. The hazard lights blinked on and off. He had not slept all night. His eyes were bloodshot. When he saw me come out, he said nothing, got out of the car. He pulled a cigarette pack from his pocket. He handed me a cigarette. Then he lit it for me. I took a deep drag. The smoke made me cough hard. My eyes watered. I asked, "Where are Mom and Sweetie?" He said, "They are both at home. They just went to sleep." My dad lit one for himself too. His voice hoarse, rough as sandpaper. He said, "Yesterday your mom and I went to the hospital. We heard about the whole scene from other people. Later, your father-in-law also called me. I was a little surprised. I asked, 'What did he say?' He replied, 'What else could he say?'" My dad exhaled a thick plume of smoke. The crease between his brows was deep enough to trap a fly. He said, "He just kept apologizing, saying he was sorry to you, sorry to our G family, and that he could no longer control that girl, Ruyan. He said to do whatever our family thought was right. He had no objections. He threw the cigarette butt to the ground and ground it out hard with the toe of his shoe. This marriage has to end. The heaviest stone in my heart finally hit the ground when I got back to the home Ruyan and I had shared. I opened the door, and the place was empty. The room was cold and empty. The air still carried her cloying perfume. The smell made my stomach turn. Fine. I found a few suitcases in the storage room. Then I started packing. First came Sweetie's things. Her little clothes. Her little dresses. Neatly folded one by one. Her favorite bunny plushie. The picture book she had to hug before she could fall asleep. And all those crooked family portraits she had drawn. I picked one up. It showed a little figure with pigtails, holding the tall father with one hand, and the pretty mother with the other. All three of them were grinning. It felt like something had jammed in my chest. I felt suffocated. Then I packed my own things. There were not many. A few changes of clothes, a few books, and a laptop. It only took a moment to pack them up. After everything was packed, I took the divorce agreement I had prepared long ago from my briefcase. I placed it in the most obvious spot on the coffee table in the living room. On it, my name was already signed clearly. I dragged a few large suitcases with me and gave one last look at the place I had once called home. I felt no attachment at all. I turned and shut the door behind me. After moving everything back to the old house in City C and selling in, I called my senior from college, Shen Youchu. She was now one of the city's best-known divorce lawyers. As soon as the call connected, her cheerful laugh came through the phone. Well, gee, our great genius. What wind blew you my way? From the way you sound, this doesn't sound like good news. Sounds more like you've gone and caused some trouble. I said, you could say that. I gave a bitter smile and said, I beat up my wife and her lover. I just got out of the station. Shen Youchu went quiet for 2 seconds. Then her voice turned serious at once. She said, send me the address. I'll come to you. No, wait. Come straight to my law firm. This is not something we can talk through on the phone. In Shen Youchu's office, I sent her the folder called Evidence, along with every photo and video inside it. She took one look and got straight to work. Wearing gold-rimmed glasses, she scanned them quickly, her fingers flying over the mouse, flipping through them one by one, her expression shifting from relaxed to serious. Are these enough evidence? I asked. Enough? Shen Youchu looked up, raised her brows, and said, more than enough. With just what you have. The fact that she cheated during the marriage is airtight. And you even have a special profession, which gives you an advantage in court. You have a special profession, so the court will naturally lean your way. When the court rules on custody, it will definitely lean your way. On top of that, she already has a history of trying to hit the child in front of other people. On top of that, she had already tried to hit our child in front of everyone. Sweetie's custody. She does not have one chance. There was a hard edge in the look behind her lenses. The eyes behind her glasses held a sharp edge. She asked, as for the property split, what about your marital assets? I said, the house was paid for in full before the marriage. The car is registered under her name. We keep our finances separate. As for her side, I don't know. All right, I understand. Shen Youchu nodded. A professional, icy smile tugged at the corner of her mouth. She said, if she signs without fuss, an uncontested divorce would be best. If she refuses to sign and wants to fight it in court, I guarantee that aside from the beat-up car she bought herself, she won't take a single cent from you. With her words, I finally felt at ease. That mess at the hospital was ultimately labeled a hospital disturbance, and then it was brushed aside. But behind the scenes, the whole City First Hospital had already heard about it. The break room, the cafeteria, the on-call room, any place with people, was full of rumors about Dr. Liu from cardiothoracic surgery and the new Dr. Ito. Ruyan heard them, of course. She shut herself in the guest room at her best friend Xu Tingting's place for an entire day. Xu Tingting was her best friend at the hospital. She worked in the ultrasound room. When she pushed the door open, Ruyan was sitting on the carpet with 2 empty bottles in front of her. She looked completely lost. Jiboda has lost his mind. He's a madman. The moment Ruyan saw Xu Tingting, her eyes turned red at once. She grabbed her arm as if grabbing the last straw. She said, "He hit me at the hospital. In front of so many coworkers, he even turned Sweetie against me and told her to slander me. How could he treat me like this?" She loudly accused Jibota of everything he had done, saying he did not trust her, that he had humiliated her in front of her parents and coworkers, that Jibota was petty and narrow-minded, and that he had blown the whole thing out of proportion. Shu Tingting listened in silence, not interrupting, and not agreeing either. Only when Liu Ruyan had cried herself breathless and talked herself out, did she hand over a cup of warm water and asked lightly, "Finished?" Liu Ruyan froze. Sniffling, she nodded. Shu Tingting looked her in the eye and said, "Then let me ask you something too. What are you really thinking?" Liu Ruyan did not catch on. She asked in confusion, "What do you mean? What am I thinking?" Shu Tingting made it plain. "Are you planning to divorce Jibota and then run off with Ito Makoto? Or are you going to cut things off cleanly with Ito Makoto and go home to live properly?" Liu Ruyan's sobbing stopped at once. She probably never expected that when she came looking for comfort, this was the question she would get instead. She opened her mouth, and after a long pause forced out one line. "Ito Makoto and I, we are innocent." Shu Tingting suddenly laughed. There was a hard, unreadable trace of mockery in that laugh. "Liu Ruyan, it's one thing to lie to other people, but you are lying to yourself too. Tell me, what kind of innocent coworkers need you to lie and say you're going into surgery, only for you to turn around and spend his birthday with him? What kind of innocent coworkers sit with their heads close together at meals? You were practically feeding each other buns. The bun was practically at his mouth already. What kind of innocent coworker can a single phone call make a mother drop her child and rush off to see him?" With every word Shu Tingting said, Liu Ruyan's face went a shade paler. Shu Tingting said, "Last month. And how many extra shifts did you tell Jibota you had worked? How many extra shifts did you tell Jibota you worked? Do you really think I'm stupid? Didn't you ever ask around about the shift roster?" Shu Tingting stood up. She looked down at her and said, "To me, you are soaking up Ito Makoto's emotional value, while also wanting Jibota to give you financial value. And you expect him to forgive every lie you tell, no questions asked. Liu Ruyan, are you out of your mind? Or do you think every man in the world owes you? I wanted to say this to you before, but you are my best friend, and I thought this was a private matter between husband and wife. I did not want to interfere. But look at yourself now. You hardly even recognize yourself anymore, do you?" Shu Tingting pointed toward the door and said, "You do not believe me, right? Fine. Go back to the hospital right now and ask any coworker you like, from the hospital leadership all the way down to the cleaning lady. Ask them whether they believe that you, Dr. Liu, and Ito Makoto are just innocent coworkers." "I did not." Liu Ruyan's voice faded. She had lost her nerve. Shu Tingting laughed bitterly. "You did not? Then why did Jibota come to the hospital? For a man who cared so much about face, would he really do something like that unless you pushed him too far?" Liu Ruyan was completely speechless. She collapsed on the carpet, eyes empty. She had come to Shu Tingting looking for an ally, to curse out Jibota together as some hopelessly unromantic husband. Liu Ruyan was completely speechless. She slumped onto the carpet. Her eyes were hollow. She had come to Shu Tingting, looking for an ally, to curse out Jibota together as that hopelessly unromantic husband. But instead, Shu Tingting tore apart the mask she had always thought was convincing, and tore it to shreds. Watching her look so lost and miserable, Shu Tingting sighed, and delivered the final blow. She said, "I heard that Jibota has already given you the divorce agreement. To be fair, he has done everything he could for these past few months. If it were any other man, and he knew his wife was fooling around with another man every day, and that she would not even care when the child was sick, he would have slapped you long ago. The one who ruined this family was not him." Shu Tingting slammed a glass of water down in front of her. The bottom of the glass struck the coffee table with a dull thud. "What exactly is it about Ito Makoto that attracts you? Liu Ruyan, put your hand on your conscience and tell me, what has Jibota ever done wrong to you?" Shu Tingting's voice was not loud, but every word was clear. "Do not tell me Jibota does not believe you and Ito Makoto are innocent. Even I I do not believe it. Ruyan snapped her head up, and even forgot to let the tears fall. She said, but I really did not sleep with Ito Makoto. Shu Tingting gave a cold laugh. What does that change? Who would believe it? Ruyan could not believe it. Shu Tingting was her best friend, the safe harbor she had come to for comfort. But now the look in her eyes was utterly unfamiliar and appraising. Shu Tingting said, and now you are feeling wronged. The whole hospital is talking. They say your daughter had a 102-degree fever, and you stayed out all night. While you were out at a gathering with your innocent co-worker, your daughter had been looking forward to the sports day for days, and you turned around and went off to celebrate his birthday with him. Ruyan, listen to the things you did, and hear for yourself. Do they sound like something a mother would do? Like something a wife would do? If Jiboda had been even a little more spineless, he would have been cuckolded long ago. Him coming to the hospital and hitting someone was because you forced him into it. They say he caught you all over each other with Ito Makoto. Ruyan, and you still have the nerve to cry. Shu Tingting's words were more humiliating for her than Jiboda's slap. She suddenly felt cold all over. With no idea where to put her hands or feet, she ran out of Shu Tingting's place, like a wandering ghost, roaming aimlessly through the streets late at night. When the cold wind blew, she only then realized she had not even brought her phone. Her mind was a mess, full of everything Shu Tingting had just said. You soak up Ito Makoto's emotional value, while also wanting Jiboda to provide you with financial support. Is that it? She remembered how every time Ito Makoto looked for her, she would go, as if under some spell. Every time Ito Makoto called her, she would answer with her heart pounding. As for Jiboda, it seemed that ever since they got married, the moment she saw his caller ID, she would feel an instinctive irritation. The last time she had called Jiboda on her own was because her credit card had been maxed out. She thought of that divorce agreement. When she got it, she tore it up without even looking at it. What she had been thinking then was, what right did Jiboda have to ask for a divorce? This family, whether it stayed together or fell apart, should also have been her decision. But now that she thought about it, it seemed more like a guilty, defensive struggle. She thought again of the hospital corridor, of Jiboda shielding Sweetie behind him, and of the slap she had raised her hand to give him. The look in Sweetie's eyes then had been fear. Her daughter was afraid of her. That realization sent a sharp pain twisting through her chest. In the end, the image froze on the moment Jiboda kicked Ito Makoto flying. How had she reacted then? She had rushed over, wanting to claw at Jiboda's face, screaming at him to stop. If the head nurse had not held her back so tightly, she might really have started fighting with her own husband. All for another man. Ruyan stopped walking. She stood beneath a street lamp, the light stretching her shadow thin and long. At last, she had to admit that Shu Tingting was right. The one who ruined this family was not Jiboda. It was her. A late surge of panic seized her. She started running home, stumbling all the way. Even her high heels twisted beneath her. She wanted to go home. She had to explain it to Jiboda. There really was nothing between her and Ito Makoto. They had not slept together. She had only made a foolish mistake for a moment. She would never do it again. She still had a chance. There had to be. Panting hard, she unlocked the front door. Jiboda. Sweetie. The house was pitch black. No one answered. She fumbled for the entryway light and switched it on. Light spilled down. The living room was empty. Sweetie's toy storage bin was gone. The few pairs of shoes Jiboda usually wore were gone from the entryway cabinet too. On the coffee table, a document lay quietly. It was still that divorce agreement. Beside it, a note was pinned down. It was Jiboda's handwriting. Lean and hard. Sharp. I took Sweetie with me. I listed the house with the real estate agent. The car is yours. And also, do not come looking for us again. She picked it up, then put it back down. She looked it over several times. Only then did she confirm she had not misread it. She had once told Jiboda that he was the most stubborn person she had ever met. Once he made up his mind, not even 9 oxen could drag him back. She had said it with a smile then, as nothing more than a joke between lovers. She never expected those words to come true. From that welcome back party onward, the first lie she told was like knocking over the first domino. From the start, she was terrified and painstakingly trying to explain herself. Until later, lies came almost automatically. She suddenly felt that something was wrong with this house. It was so empty it made her heart race. She rushed into Sweetie's room. The closet door was open. More than half the clothes inside were missing. The sets of pajamas Sweetie liked best, the little socks she wore in rotation every day, were all gone. The teddy bear on the bed, the one Sweetie had hugged until it pilled, was gone too. Only a few things she had bought on a whim were left. Expensive princess dresses that Sweetie had only worn once or twice, hanging there all alone. She rushed into the master bedroom again and pulled open the closet. Jibota's side was missing a few things too. He had only taken his everyday clothes. The designer suits and ties she bought him hadn't been touched. They hung there neatly, as if mocking her in silence. At that moment, a sharp fear gripped her. She searched the house like a madwoman, trying to find her phone, only to remember that when she ran out of Shu Tingting's place, she hadn't taken anything with her. She rushed into the living room, picked up the landline receiver, and dialed Shu Tingting with shaking fingers. Shu Tingting, bring my phone over now. Hurry. Shu Tingting lived nearby and arrived in a little over 10 minutes. Seeing how lost Liu Ruyan looked, she said nothing and just handed her the phone. Liu Ruyan snatched the phone away, unlocked it, and the moment the screen lit up, she hurried into her contacts and called Jibota. A cold robotic female voice came through the receiver. Hello. The number you have dialed is no longer in service. No longer in service. He'd even canceled the number. Liu Ruyan's hand jerked, almost dropping the phone. Not willing to give up, she opened WeChat again and sent Jibota a message. Jibota, come back. Let's talk. A red exclamation mark stabbed at her eyes. He blocked her. Her last hope rested on her daughter's kid's smartwatch. Her shaking fingers dialed Sweetie's number. The receiver played a long stream of beeps. No one answered. She kept calling again and again, until the voice on the line said the call was unanswered and would be sent to voicemail. The phone slipped from her limp hand and hit the carpet. The screen went dark. Liu Ruyan sank to the floor and at last couldn't hold it in anymore. She threw her arms around Shu Tingting, who hadn't left yet, and burst into tears. In those sobs, there was no trace of grievance or blame. There was only pure, abandoned despair. She choked out, he doesn't want me anymore. Shu Tingting, he really doesn't want me anymore. Even Sweetie doesn't want me anymore. Seeing her like that, Shu Tingting's anger faded too. All that was left was exhaustion. She bent down and picked up the phone from the floor and put it back in Liu Ruyan's hand. She said, what's the use of crying? Has Jibota vanished into thin air, or what? Can crying bring him back? Liu Ruyan raised tearful eyes, unable to say a word through her sobs. Shu Tingting said coldly, he's a living, breathing man. He can't just fly off to heaven and disappear. His parents' home, the place where he grew up, you don't know where that is, and you want to go over there looking like a wreck. Are you trying to start another fight with him? Or do you want Sweetie to see just how ugly her mother looks right now? Shu Tingting paused. Then her tone softened a little. Liu Ruyan, you need to think this through. You and Ito Makoto, you have to cut it off cleanly. If Jibota ever sees the two of you tangled up in anything again, then don't blame Jibota for being ruthless. Otherwise, you might as well sign the divorce agreement now. Don't drag this out until you have no dignity left at all. Second, think it over before you go find him. Figure out exactly where you went wrong. Then apologize. Otherwise, if you go now, you'll only be pouring fuel on the fire. It won't do any good. Shu Tingting's words were like a bucket of ice water dumped over her head. Liu Ruyan's crying gradually died down. She looked at Shu Tingting, her lips moving slightly. She wanted to say something, but realized she had nothing to say. Shu Tingting let out a sigh, pressed her lips together, and said, I'm leaving first. Calm yourself down. Other people's family business really wasn't something she should get too deeply involved in. After the door closed, Liu Ruyan was alone in the room again. She clutched the phone, as if it were something that could save her life. She thought for a long time, and finally dialed her family's number. It rang for a long time before someone answered. It was her mom. Mom. The second Liu Ruyan opened her mouth, her voice was already thick with tears. There was silence on the other end for a second. Then her father's roar exploded through the line. You still have the nerve to call back. You've shamed the Liu family beyond redemption. In the background, her mother was quietly trying to calm him. Old Liu. Let her finish. Finish what? What is there left to say? Raising a shameless thing like you has left me with nowhere to put this old face of mine. Her father's curses grew uglier with every word. Ruyan held the receiver, her hand shaking badly. I didn't. There's really nothing between Ito Makoto and me, she said anxiously. We didn't sleep together. Mr. Liu shouted. And you still dare say that? Old Liu. Her mother snatched the phone away, her voice full of exhaustion and disappointment. Ryan, tell Mom the truth. What your father just said. Is it true or not? Ruyan said in a trembling voice. I didn't sleep with him. Really, I didn't. I was just confused for a moment. This was her last line of defense, and the only dignity she had left. The other end of the line fell silent for a long time. After a long while, her mother finally spoke. Her voice was hoarse as she said, So, what do you want to do now? Ruyan said, I want to go find Jibota. I want to apologize to Sweetie. I want to beg him. But the next second, her father cut her off. Don't waste your energy on that. This time, his voice carried total despair. He said, Ruyan, listen to me. If a man has been pushed this far by you, he won't turn back. Don't go humiliating yourself anymore. Sign that agreement obediently, and leave yourself a shred of dignity. Mrs. Liu said sharply. What are you talking nonsense about? She said. Ryan, don't listen to your dad. You were the one who did wrong. You should go admit your mistake. Lower your attitude. Sincerely apologize. Even if you really want a divorce, you still need to make everything clear. You can't let him leave with a misunderstanding. And you definitely can't let that misunderstanding grow any bigger. The call ended. The room fell into complete silence. Her father's words made her feel as if she had fallen into an ice cave. Her mother's words, on the other hand, were like a tiny flicker of flame, igniting in the depths of her heart. Go, or not go. Sign it, or don't sign it. Ruyan sat on the cold floor, staring at the thin agreement on the coffee table. For the first time, she felt so lost and helpless. She knew this might be her last chance. If she couldn't even hold on to this chance, she didn't dare keep thinking. The next afternoon, Ruyan still came to my parents' house. In the old residential compound, there were hardly any secrets between neighbors. She was wearing a plain dress, and her hair was neatly tied back. She wore no makeup. Her eyes were red-rimmed. Standing at the courtyard gate, she really did look pitiful enough to tug at someone's heart. My mom opened the door. When she saw it was Ruyan, the faint smile on my mom's face disappeared at once. She blocked the doorway and did not let her in. Mom. Ruyan had barely opened her mouth before her voice caught in her throat. When my dad heard the commotion, he came out of the living room too. He was still holding a palm leaf fan. He stood beside my mom, like a mountain. My dad said, Jibota isn't here. His voice was deep, giving away nothing. Ruyan's tears surged out at once and streamed down her cheeks. She said, Mom, Dad, I know I was wrong. I really was just confused for a moment. I'm begging you. Let me see Sweetie. Let me explain everything to Jibota. As she spoke, she tried to push her way inside. My mom reached out and stopped her without much force. She said, Ruyan, if you have something to say it to Jibota. We old folks can't manage the matters between you young people. Sweetie must have heard her mother's voice, because she peeked out from behind my mom with her little head. She looked at her timidly. Sweetie. Ruyan looked like she had seen a savior. Her eyes lit up. She crouched down and reached for Sweetie's hand. Sweetie, it's Mom. Mom came to see you. Sweetie shrank back and hid behind my mom's legs. She whispered, Mom, please don't be with that bad uncle anymore. A child's words are always the most direct. Sweetie said, that bad uncle makes you not come to my parent-teacher conference, and you don't even celebrate my birthday. Sweetie counted on her fingers, one thing after another. Grandma said, a good mom wouldn't do that. Ruyan crouched there. Her whole body froze. Every single thing Sweetie said was like a little hammer, not heavy, but striking her heart again and again. Only then did she clearly realize just how much she had missed. Those little things she thought were insignificant in her child's heart had actually been such huge matters. She choked out, "I was wrong, sweetie. Mom was truly wrong." Ruyan could not hold on anymore. Her knees gave way, and with a thud, she fell to her knees on the concrete in the courtyard. Her knees slammed against the ground, making a dull, heavy sound. She said, "Mom, Dad, I'm begging you. Give me one more chance. There is really nothing between me and Ito Makoto. We never went that far. Everything can still be fixed." She cried so hard it tore at the heart. It drew a few passing neighbors to stop walking and point from a distance. My dad's face had turned as dark as it could get. Just then, I drove up and turned in from the alley entrance. At a glance, I saw Ruyan at the courtyard gate, along with the embarrassed looks on my parents' faces, and my daughter, hiding behind Grandma, looking lost. This scene was truly something to see. My gaze moved past her and landed beneath the old locust tree at the corner of the alley not far away. A black sedan was parked there. I remember the license plate very clearly. It was Ito Makoto's. He probably thought parking at the gate was too obvious, so he deliberately picked a spot he thought was hidden. So they had come together after all. I parked the car and got out. When Ruyan saw me, it was like she had seen light. Crying, she tried to crawl over and grab me. "Jibota, listen to my explanation." I frowned and said, "Get up." My voice was very calm. I said, "Stop putting on a show here. The neighbors are all watching. It's embarrassing." She stared at me in a daze, tears still clinging to her lashes. "Go back." I looked at her, not even bothering to feel any extra anger. I said, "The divorce agreement has already been sent to your mail by lawyer Shen. If you want to discuss property division, you can talk to my lawyer." I paused, and word by word, made myself perfectly clear. I said, "However, Sweetie's custody is not up for discussion." Ruyan struggled to her feet. Her knees scraped raw, but she didn't care about the pain. Staggering, she lunged at me. I shifted to the side and avoided her. She lost her balance and slammed hard onto the concrete beside her. She caught herself with her palms and scraped out several bloody streaks. "Jibota." Just then, a voice I had expected came from the corner of the alley. Ito Makoto hurried over at once and helped Ruyan to her feet. Cursing under his breath, he said, "Are you even a man? Ruyan has already humbled herself like this, and she's hurt too. Are you really this cold-blooded?" My parents' faces instantly turned livid. The neighbors pointing and whispering grew louder. When Ruyan saw Ito Makoto appear, she completely panicked. She knew full well that if Ito Makoto showed up now, everything she had done before would be wasted. And with her parents too, she would have no explanation at all. Ignoring the pain in her hand, she swung back and slapped Ito Makoto across the face. That slap left Ito Makoto completely stunned. Ruyan shouted, "Why did you come?" She was crying hysterically. She said, "Did I tell you to come? Showing up now. Are you trying to ruin me?" Ito Makoto's face darkened, and he said in disbelief, "Ruyan, are you crazy? I'm doing this for your own good." "For my own good," Ruyan said sharply. "Go. Leave now. Don't ever show up in front of me again." But Ito Makoto glared at me and shot back, "I'm not leaving. Jibota, you don't deserve Ruyan treating you like this." I suddenly laughed. It was the laugh of someone pushed to the limit. I lifted a foot and was about to step forward, but Ruyan hurriedly stepped in front of Ito Makoto and spread her arms to shield him. "Don't." At that moment, the courtyard was so quiet you could only hear the wind. I stopped in my tracks. I looked at her coldly. She froze too, looking down at her outstretched arms, unable to believe she had actually done something like that. That was more convincing than any evidence. "Mom," Sweetie cried, trying to rush out. But my mom held her tight. This kind of scene was not fit for a child to see. Without turning back, I said, "Mom, Dad, take Sweetie inside." My dad walked over, glanced at Ruyan kneeling on the ground, then looked at Ito Makoto standing off to the side, lost and helpless. He shook his head and said, "Don't lay a hand on him. The neighbors are all watching." My mom picked Sweetie up and coaxed her softly, "Be good, Sweetie. Go inside with Grandma and watch TV." Sweetie rested on Grandma's shoulder and asked quietly, "Grandma, why is Mom kneeling? Did Mom do something wrong?" Grown-up matters. Little kids shouldn't worry about them. My mom hurried Sweetie into the house. When Ruyan heard her daughter's words, she cried even harder. She let go of my leg and shouted toward the house, "Sweetie, Sweetie, tell Dad. Mom will stay with you from now on. Mom will never leave you again." The doors shut. Only the three of us were left in the courtyard. Ruyan knelt on the ground, clutching my leg and refusing to let go. "Jibota, I'm begging you. Give me one more chance. I promise. I really didn't do anything with Ito Makoto. I didn't sleep with him. I swear. I'll definitely take good care of Sweetie from now on. I won't ever again." I looked down at her and said, "Done acting yet?" "Jibota, I'm not acting. I mean it." I pointed at Ito Makoto, who was still standing at the alley entrance, and asked, "Then what is he? How many pieces is your sincerity worth?" Ruyan followed my finger and looked over. Ito Makoto was standing by the alley. There was still a handprint on his face. His eyes were full of anger and resentment. She bit her lip and said, "They'll make him leave. They'll make him leave right now." Ruyan sprang to her feet and ran toward Ito Makoto. I didn't stop her. I just watched in silence. Actually, even if Ito Makoto had not shown up today, she had already been sentenced to death in my heart. What's more, he had shown up again now. I thought of the call her parents made to me last night. They said Ruyan had cut things off with Ito Makoto completely and begged me to talk to her properly. Even if we really were going to divorce, we should at least clear the air first. Now it seemed there was no need for that anymore. Ruyan never got my forgiveness, and she started her siege and blockade tactics. On my way to work, her car would suddenly lunge out from a corner, blocking my car. When I got off work and headed home, she would wait outside the company building, sometimes for hours on end. Even when it came to picking Sweetie up after school, she would always get to the kindergarten gate ahead of time. "Jibota, will you at least let me finish?" She blocked my way, her eyes swollen and red as she said, "I promise. This is the last time." I rubbed the bridge of my nose and said, "You say that every time." I went around her and kept walking. She said, "Ito Makoto has already been fired." She shouted behind me. I reported him. I reported every violation he committed at the clinic. He can't even keep his medical license now. I stopped walking. I turned back to look at her. Ruyan said, "I've cut things off with him completely." "Really?" Her eyes were flashing with something close to madness. She said, "To prove it to you, I destroyed him. Doesn't that prove how serious I am?" I shrugged and said, "When we got married, at the wedding, you made vows too." I looked at her calmly and said, "You promised to keep your word. Did you do that?" Ruyan opened her mouth, but no words came out. I said, "Let's part on good terms. Don't make this any uglier than it has to be." I turned and left. But she still wouldn't give up. She had had the divorce agreement for 3 months, and she just refused to sign. Every time lawyer Shen Youchu pressed her, she came up with a new excuse. Today she said she needed to think it over again. Tomorrow she said she wanted to talk it through with me face to face. And the day after that she said the child was still too young and couldn't live without her mother. Shen Youchu said helplessly on the phone. She insists she never slept with Ito Makoto, and that things have not yet reached the point of no return. "Jibota, it looks like we can only go through litigation." I stayed silent for a long time. A contested divorce meant laying every ugly thing out in court, in front of the judge and the court clerk, one by one, clearly. That was nothing honorable for anyone. Shen Yuchu's voice was gentle as she said, "I know you don't want to take this to court, but if she won't sign, you still can't get past it in your heart. To get this over with as soon as possible. This is the only step left." "Fine," I said. "Prepare the documents." In court, I presented the evidence. It was not just photos and videos, but chat logs too. Those chat logs were sent to me by Ito Makoto, who had given up and stopped caring. He knew Ruyan had reported him, and that he was going to lose his medical license. So he sent me every chat log he had. He just wanted me to divorce Ruyan for good. At this point, a divorce was inevitable, so it no longer mattered. I said, This is the defendant's unauthorized transfer of 500,000 yuan from our joint account for Ito Makoto, the other man, of 500,000 yuan from our joint family account. I handed the bank statements to the judge. I said, 300,000 of that was money she advanced for Ito Makoto's private clinic, without discussing it with me first. The other 200,000 was spent on their food, drinks, and entertainment. Liu Ruyan sat in the defendant's seat, her face pale as a sheet. I said, I hadn't noticed any of this before. Only when I tried to pay my daughter's tuition and sign her up for interest classes did the card decline for lack of funds, and I realized the savings on this card had been spent down to nothing. I went on. These are all irrefutable pieces of evidence. The judge flipped through the bank statements, brows knit tightly. I continued. Also, from the moment my daughter was born until now, I've been the one taking care of her. I pulled out a thick stack of documents. There were statements from her kindergarten teachers, medical records from the hospital, and testimony from neighbors. Because Ms. Liu Ruyan was busy meeting the other man, she rarely came home, let alone take care of her child. Liu Ruyan's lawyer tried to object, but the evidence was airtight, and there was nothing he could do. He said, Your Honor, my client admits that during the marriage, she did have inappropriate contact with Ito Makoto, but she firmly denies having had an actual affair. Substantive. I let out a cold laugh and said, Is 500,000 yuan not substantial enough? Liu Ruyan cried her heart out in the defendant's seat, tears streaming down in beads, not even bothering to wipe her nose. She choked out, Your Honor, I really know I was wrong. She stood up, pressing her palms together as she said, Please, give me one last chance. I promise I'll live properly from now on. I'll never make this mistake again. The judge frowned, looked at her, then looked at me. Liu Ruyan sobbed, Jibota, I'm begging you, for sweetie's sake, can we start over? Liu Ruyan turned to me, her eyes swollen and red like peaches. She said, I can write a pledge. I can swear it. If I do it again, I'll smash my head and die. A few older women in the gallery whispered, She does look pitiful crying like that. Someone else said, Pitiful what? Cheating and still trying to justify it. The judge rapped the gavel and said, Order. Defendant, please sit down. Liu Ruyan refused to sit. She said in court, Your Honor, I really didn't sleep with Ito Makoto. We just flirted a little. I just lost my head for a moment, but I didn't betray the heart of our marriage. She cried harder and harder, her voice cracking. If you rule for our divorce, I won't have any way to go on living. I'll smash my head and die right here. Liu Ruyan suddenly stood up and pretended to lunge for the wall. A gasp ran through the gallery. The court clerk quickly stopped her. The judge's head was pounding. He looked at the time and said, Court is adjourned for now. We will continue in 15 minutes. That 15-minute break turned into an hour. The judge called me into the mediation room alone and tried to persuade me earnestly. Mr. G, I know you're angry, but you were husband and wife once, and the child is still so young. Ms. Liu did not, in fact, have a real relationship with the third party, as long as she truly repents. I said with a laugh, Judge, you're a man too. Do you think a woman, using her husband's money to spend on her lover, is something any man could tolerate? What kind of credibility does someone like that have? I interrupted him and went on. That was 500,000 yuan. She handed it over to someone else without blinking. The judge sighed and said, But she really does know she was wrong now. You call that realizing her mistake? I sneered. If she truly had realized it, she should have signed 3 months ago, instead of waiting until court to play the victim. Seeing that I was firm, the judge had no choice but to go persuade Liu Ruyan again. An older, experienced female judge couldn't bear it anymore, and went with her into the mediation room. She talked with Liu Ruyan in the mediation room for a long time. Liu Ruyan inside was crying so hard she was a complete wreck. I could hear her crying from outside. She said, Ms. Liu, you say you've realized your mistake, and that you're determined to make things right again. That's good. But since this relationship has problems, then let it end first. Liu Ruyan raised her head, looking at her through tear-blurred eyes. The judge went on. After ending this failed relationship, you can start over. Win back your husband and daughter. With your daughter there, that's your bond. You will definitely have visitation rights. You still have a chance to repair things. But, Ruyan still wanted to say something, but the judge said, "Think it over. If you keep deadlocking like this, it won't do anyone any good." She advised patiently, "Rather than keep each other in pain, you might as well end this broken relationship first and welcome a new beginning." Ruyan stayed silent for a long time. Half an hour later, the female judge came out, looking exhausted. She said, "Mr. G, I talked to her." When court reconvened, Ruyan's eyes were swollen from crying, but her expression was much calmer. The judge asked, "Defendant, do you have anything else to say?" Ruyan stood up, her voice a little hoarse. "Your Honor, I agreed to the divorce." The courtroom erupted in uproar. Even Ruyan's lawyer was stunned. Ruyan said, "I really did do something wrong. I hurt my family." She looked at me, and her tears started falling again. But this time, she didn't wail or lose control. She said, "Jiboda, I'm sorry." She paused, her voice very soft. "Sweetie's custody goes to you. I have no objection, but I hope I can have visitation rights. After all, I'm her mother." I looked at her, my feelings in complete turmoil. Was this still the Ruyan I used to know? The judge let out a breath and said, "Since both parties agreed to the divorce, then let's make the final confirmation on property division and child custody now." By the time the whole process was finished, it was already 4 in the afternoon. When I walked out of the courthouse, I suddenly felt lighter. It felt like I had set down a heavy burden. Ruyan followed behind me and asked softly, "Jiboda, when can I see Sweetie?" Without turning around, I said, "Every Saturday from 2 to 5 in the afternoon, at my parents' house." "Okay." Her voice was very soft. "Thank you." I didn't look back and went straight to the parking lot. This marriage was finally over. After the divorce, I heard through a friend that she had really cut things off completely with Ito Makoto. When Ito Makoto came looking for her again one time, Ruyan actually stabbed him. She cursed him, saying Ito Makoto had ruined her life. The whole thing caused a huge stir. My father-in-law and mother-in-law spent a fortune and pulled a lot of strings before they managed to smooth things over. As for me, I put all my energy into my work and changed to a new car and a new home. But before long, every day after work, I would see Ruyan waiting downstairs with an insulated food carrier. "Jiboda, I made soup for you." She handed it over carefully and said, "The kind you love most." I took the insulated carrier and said nothing. It was exactly the kind of soup I liked. Ruyan had always been a good cook. "Dad, Mom's soup looks delicious." Sweetie leaned out from the back seat, her eyes lighting up. Ruyan hurried over and said, "Be good, Sweetie. Mom missed you." When I went to pick up my daughter, she just stood there watching. If our daughter wanted her mom, she would step forward, pick her up, and soothe her. Sometimes Sweetie would act spoiled and beg to go home with her mom. Ruyan would say with red-rimmed eyes, "Sweetie, you have to listen to Dad. Mom can't take you home." On every holiday, she still came to visit my parents. Her demeanor was deeply humble. On Mid-Autumn Festival, she came knocking with a big box of mooncakes in her arms. My mom opened the door and saw her, her expression turning complicated. Ruyan said, "Mom, these are the mooncakes I bought. Please try them." Ruyan bent at the waist, her voice as soft as a mosquito's buzz. My dad put down the newspaper in his hand. "Ryan, come in and sit down." "No, Dad, I just came to see you." Ruyan asked with red eyes. "Is Sweetie at home? I want to see her." That day, Sweetie was doing homework. When she saw her mother coming, she dropped her pen and ran over at once. Ruyan held our daughter in her arms, tears dropping patter after patter. Yet she forced a smile and tried to cheer Sweetie up. She did all of this without fail, rain or shine. Even my parents were moved by her persistence. Once, my mom specifically came to talk to me. "Boda, this girl Ryan knows she was wrong. Look how obedient she is now." My dad also chimed in from the side. "People, who hasn't made mistakes? She's truly turned over a new leaf now. Just give her one more chance." I shook my head and said, "Mom, Dad, some things cannot be changed just because you say so." My mom sighed and said, "But she's already gone this far for you. Even on rainy days, she's downstairs waiting for you. It breaks my heart just to see it." Liu Ryan was genuinely devoted. Once, it was pouring rain. When I got off work, I saw her standing downstairs, soaked to the bone. She was still clutching an insulated food carrier. I had planned to pretend I hadn't seen her, but Sweetie was pressed against the car window, shouting, "Mom! Mom's getting rained on." At that moment, I really was moved, but reason quickly shoved it back down. I knew she was trying to atone for her past mistakes, but I no longer had the will for it. Those lies, that 500,000 yuan, that reflexive act of protecting him, all of it, in my heart, was like nails driven into a wooden board. Even if you pull them out, the holes are still there. This failed marriage made me completely lose faith in love and marriage. We had once been so beautiful, so sweet, but we couldn't withstand the test of time and human nature. No matter how many excuses there were, I still could not get past that hurdle in my heart. Sometimes I would think, if only time could flow backward. But in reality, there are no ifs, only the outcome. I also found a chance to tell Liu Ryan clearly, we were never getting back together, so stop waiting for me. She said, "Jiboda, I am not asking you to remarry me. I only ask that you can forgive me." Liu Ryan stood downstairs, tears sliding down her cheeks. She sobbed, "I know I made an unforgivable mistake, but I really have changed. Whether you've changed or not has nothing to do with me." My voice was calm. I said, "We are already over. You should go find a life of your own, instead of wasting your time on me. My life is you and Sweetie." She said through sobs, "I've thought a lot over the years. What I destroyed was not just our marriage, but the future of all three of us." I said nothing more, and turned to go upstairs. But after hearing it, Liu Ryan only kept shedding tears. And after that, it was the same every day. I had no choice. Since she wanted to keep going like this, I let her do as she pleased. I threw myself into my career and raising my daughter. When Sweetie started elementary school, Liu Ryan picked her up and dropped her off every single day without fail. At parent-teacher conferences, she always sat in the back row, quietly listening to the entire thing. When Sweetie received a certificate of merit, she was even more excited than I was. She clapped with red-rimmed eyes. "Dad, why can't Mom come home?" Sweetie once asked me. I said, "Mom did something wrong. She needs time to move past it." I patted her head and said, "You need to study hard. When you grow up, you'll understand." Our daughter grew up day by day. She went through elementary school, middle school, high school, and college. Her features grew more and more like the young Liu Ryan back then. Sometimes when I looked at her, I would blank out for a moment, as if I were seeing that innocent, green Liu Ryan from 20 years ago. Later, at every important moment in our daughter's life, Liu Ryan was there. But she never crossed the line. She just watched from a distance, supporting us in silence. And I had become a sleazy middle-aged guy. My temples streaked with gray. My belly starting to show. My parents had grown so old. Thankfully, they were still healthy. My father-in-law passed away the year before last. I went to the funeral. That day, Liu Ryan was wearing plain black. She was painfully thin, with deep-set eyes, and she had completely lost her beauty from back then. After the funeral, Liu Ryan took my mother-in-law in, and the two of them lived together after that. The year Sweetie graduated from college, she asked me, "Don't you think Mom still loves you? Whether she loves me or not, it's in the past." I sighed and said, "In this life, it's already enough if I can do what I'm supposed to do without messing it up." Eventually, one day, our daughter started dating a boyfriend. He was a pretty good guy, and from a well-off family. 2 years later, they said they wanted to get married. She asked me carefully, "Could Mom be invited to the wedding?" I froze for a long time, looking at my daughter's hopeful eyes. I nodded and agreed. "Really?" Sweetie jumped up with excitement. She said, "Dad, thank you." I knew my daughter had actually forgiven her mother long ago. My parents had also tried repeatedly to talk me into it, saying Liu Ryan still hadn't remarried. They had seen all her efforts over the years too. My mom once told me, Liu Ryan had waited 20 years for this day. "Boda, it's time for you to let it go too." But I was the only one who knew that I could never forgive her. Those things had been eating away at me all these years, keeping me up at night far too often. And Liu Ryan had been living in remorse all these years. So she had aged very quickly too. Her hair was fully gray. She looked 10 years older than her actual age. When she learned I had agreed to let our daughter invite her to the wedding, Ruyan burst into tears of joy. She held our daughter, who had personally come to deliver the invitation, and cried for a long time. "Mom, please stop crying. Your makeup is ruined." Sweetie wiped her tears away, heartbroken. Ruyan said in a trembling voice, "Mom's happy. So happy. For 20 years. I've been waiting for this day." I listened from outside the door. I felt conflicted. 20 years. How many 20 years does a person get in a lifetime? Time can change many things and many people, but the standard for judging right and wrong doesn't necessarily move along with it.